So hello from Green-Mopeds at Strawberry Hill. Today we're taking out the new Model M Plus Sport for a quick ride, give you an idea about it and explain the differences between it and its predecessor, the Model M, and also the N1S as well, as they're all 28-mile-an-hour machines. As you can see, it's doing quite well on the nippiness front. So I guess the first thing to say is what hasn't changed. So what hasn't changed is, this is from the Model M, what hasn't changed is that it's still 1200 watt Bosch motor. The price basically hasn't changed, it's a few pounds more. It's also on the grant scheme, so you still benefit from the 20% rebate. It still has regen, which you probably won't hear, but when you brake you hear a little click as it regens the brake energy into the battery. So that's still there. It's still got the app, although there's some extra features on the app. Some more security features, so it will it knows, for example, if the bike has been falls over. We'll show you more about the app on a static review, because we'll show you it side by side with a Model M so that you get the difference. This is new, this sort of cup holder, or whatever you want to call it, but it might for some people be in the way, so they do actually supply a second one. It's also got the USB port as it had before. The dashboard is essentially the same layout. You have these two modes here between 1 and 2. Once you get used to it, I doubt you would really use mode 1, simply because mode 1 gets you about 10 to 12 miles an hour, which if I actually start off, you'll see it's a bit of a drag, so I imagine everyone will just start using mode 2. The things that have changed over its predecessor are, for example, the length. So the length of the bike is now 5 centimeters. There you go. So as you see, I just took off in mode 1 and it's a bit of a crawl, so I really doubt that you would do that unless you were sort of really trying to save energy and you were comfortable with cruising around at 10 miles an hour. What also hasn't changed is the noise that the indicators make, and the fact that they self-cancel. So if you do a turn of over more than 60 degrees, you will have the indicators turned off for you, which is quite a useful feature. Yeah, but as I was saying, so on this model, the bike is now 5 centimeters longer. So the reason for that, because on the face of it, it looks like it's exactly the same model, but underneath they've also enhanced a few things. So now this bike has front and rear disc brakes. Before it was a drum brake on the back and disc at the front. They've also given it shock absorbers, all damped shock absorbers, front and back, which again is a change to the predecessor. The result of that is that with the disc brake and the change at the back end, the actual rear arm is now different. It's on the Model M, it was sort of quite a nice sort of curved design. This is now more straight, but it has essentially lengthened the bike by 5 centimeters. What's also changed is that the bike is now a few centimeters lower than its predecessor. You really would be hard pressed to notice that. It's 2 or 3 centimeters. The other big change, I guess, is that the bike is now built for two. So the Model M was actually built as a single seater. The seat was a single long seat, very comfortable, but there were no pegs for a rear passenger and no handlebars for them to hold on to. So it wasn't meant for two people. This bike has actually got a ridged seat, and it has now got pegs so that a passenger could go on the back. The other thing is that the Model M had a maximum carrying weight of 100 kilos, which should be more than enough for one person, hopefully. But with this bike, they've now said that the maximum weight is 200 kilos. So again, hopefully more than enough for two people. Okay, so, you know, I guess the difference is that if you're relatively large or tall, I guess is a probably better way of putting it, you will find yourself sitting quite far back, because these bikes are still pretty small in sort of modern standards. They are about 1.7 meters long, give or take. And if you have your passenger on the back on this bike, you would almost certainly want the rear rack and the top box, or a different option is a backrest. I don't know if you've seen this, but it is actually an option. It's a little backrest that wouldn't actually work for a single person because it's right at the back of the seat, but for, you know, your passenger, it would be quite a nice thing to have to stop them from being shunted off the back of the bike if you're going up hills or just in general, because, you know, as I said, the bike seat, or the bike in general, is relatively small. So this is a 28 mile an hour bike. In a minute I'm going to take it up Richmond Hill, because lots of people have been asking about, well, how does it deal with hills and etc, etc. So as you can see now, we're, you know, just going over Richmond Bridge. You know, we're doing 24, no effect at all. It hasn't slowed down or anything. So I'm going to try it on Richmond Hill just to show you how these bikes actually handle, because at the end of the day, this is still a 1200 watt bike. 1200 watts, if you think about it, roughly 750 watts is a horsepower, near enough. So 1.2 kilowatts is 1 and a bit horsepower. So here we go up. This is quite a long hill up Richmond Hill. After this, I'm going to go up a more steep one, and see, I'm keeping up with this car in front. Okay, 20 miles an hour. Okay. I'm about 80 plus kilos myself, 6'1", so no real issues. In this hill, you know, what you usually find is that these, if you're going up long hills, you eventually find that the bikes run out of juice. So this should hopefully give you a feel for how it actually deals with a long hill. Okay. Okay, so we've picked up again to 21. And as you can probably hear, there's only the wind. There's no other noise of these bikes. The indicator is the only sound that you get. Some people are okay with that. Other people not so much. But it's the way it is. There is actually some talk about the European Union making manufacturers create noise in cars under 15 miles an hour. There's no talk about that, I think, yet on motorbikes, but it might be a future Euro 8 standard or something like that. So in the meantime, you do have to, appreciate the fact that it's silent, and we have people round to try these bikes who actually like the fact that they're not sitting there making noise. Okay, so I'll now go down Richmond Hill and then up again, just to make you get an idea of that. So you'll find on these on these bikes, if you look at the specs, what they actually talk about is the gradient that these bikes can handle. Typically 14-15%. So in old money, that would be 1 in 7, something like that. As you can see now, we're coasting down this hill, not actually doing anything. And then I don't know if you can see on the dashboard down there, there's a R as I brake, and you almost certainly won't hear the clicking, but that meant that I was recouping some of the energy as we were going down. So some other things to note is the battery, for example, again compared to the Model M. Model M was a 32 amp hour battery. This is a 42 amp hour battery. The end result of that is that it's got more range because the motor is still the same power, so you gain range. The quoted range on this bike in kilometers is 120 kilometers. You should always take those figures with a pinch of salt, because that would be in lab conditions. In this bike, that would probably be in mode 1, flat surface, warm weather, because that also affects it. So I certainly wouldn't expect anyone to get 120 kilometers, which is about 80 miles out of it. You're more likely to get something in miles. If we go back to miles, you're more likely to get something like 60 to 70. Okay, so this is a relatively steep hill. As you see, the indicators cut out as I was after, because the turn was more than 60 degrees. So here we go. It doesn't say the gradient of this hill, but it's relatively steep, as you can probably tell. I'll look back down it when I get to the top. So we're doing 16, so we're keeping to 16, and we've lost a few miles going up this hill. Okay, so just to give you a view of what it looks like down that hill. So it's quite steep. Let's go this way. Okay, so we just go around again. So yeah, I mean, like any car, any sort of small car, a 1 litre car or something like that, it's the same thing. Ultimately you've only got a certain amount of power to move a certain amount of weight up a certain amount of hill. So we were never going to get 28 up that hill, but it wasn't as if it conked out and stopped. So and it's carrying, as I said, an 82 or 3 kilo weight on it as well. So the charging times on these bikes they have actually on the NGT, which is the new fast version, they have actually improved the charging time. That's because they've got a more powerful charger. This one has got the same charger as it had before. And so bearing in mind that you are stuffing more energy into a bigger battery, there is no improvement in the charging time of this bike. Okay, so and that's simply, again, the physics of getting X amount of kilowatts into a battery. There you go again, it cancelled the indicators. So in terms of nipping around, so here I am 29 on the flat. It's not the hottest of days, it's March. Its top speed is 29 miles an hour. It's a moped, you need a CBT to ride it, or a P on your license, or full license obviously. It's doing just fine at that speed. It's got all the smart things that the new family of bikes are known for. So it's got all the tracking that the app does, so you can have live tracking of where the bike is. So I can I could have someone registered to this app, and by the way, you can share the app with up to 5 people on any one bike. So I had one customer who was buying a bike for his son, and he wanted to have access to the app as well, so he could basically keep track of the bike if it goes missing, but maybe keep track of his son if he goes missing. So yeah, you can have 5 people registered to any one bike, and you can have many bikes in your garage, as they call it. And on the app, you can track where the bike is. You can check the health of the bike, so there's a status check on the bike, and it will run through all of the electronics and all of that. You can check the battery health. It will tell you how many times you've charged it, the overall health of the battery, etc., etc. It will give you alerts if it's being moved unintentionally or in an unauthorized way, as they call it. And you can also update the firmware. So as you probably know, a lot of these bikes have software that's for the battery management system. This one's no exception to that. And sometimes what happens is they come out with new firmware which will actually give you more range. That was one of the announcements on one of the latest firmwares on this bike, that we've actually gained a bit more range because the BMS was improved. So they're worth doing. They're very simple to do. We're actually going to make a short clip on how you actually do that, but essentially it's done over the air. So you need a 3G connection to download some data, and that data is then you turn the bike into a certain mode so that it is ready to accept that update, and you have the connection made, and it's all done over the air. So as long as your phone's in a good place, and so you can get a good signal, and your bike is in a good place as well, you can do that. So as reviews go, I think that's pretty much all we would tell you. The only other thing, of course, is colour and things like that. So this one's actually I have a feeling this is a special edition because it's not listed on the new website as an option, but it's the same as the NGT in as much as it's a black with red stripes. The other colours that are typically available are red, white, blue, black, and then there's this black with red. So look out for this one if you're into something that's a little bit more unusual in terms of colours, at least. I mean, overall, with the new things, especially the rear changes, the shock absorber and the disc brake at the back as well, it's I would say a more firm ride over the Model M, and you know, for those of you who are used to riding these bikes, it would be, you know, quite a good upgrade to a Model M if you've got one of those. I guess the next question would be, would you choose the N or the M Plus? Because they're both 28 mile an hour bikes. The main difference is that the N has a 1500 watt motor, still 28 miles an hour, is a two-seater by default, but it weighs 30 kilos more. So you're getting 300 watts of energy or power more, but you're getting 30 kilos more to move around. So the net result of that is that this bike, the M, actually feels a bit more nippy, a bit more sprightly, I guess, just because, you know, power to weight is better on this bike. This one would also be able to nip in and out of traffic a bit more easily than the N, simply because it's narrower and can get through some more spaces. So I hope you found that useful. As always, there's more information on our website. You're very much welcome to try them. We recommend you try them. There are some places that are not allowing that, well, not offering that, let's say. You should always try these bikes, whether it be this one or come round to compare a few, because they do have different characteristics. So it is something that we encourage and are more than happy to do. We just would like to know in advance. So we hope you found that useful. Any more information, feel free to check us out on our website. Drop us an email. If you want to arrange a test ride, then we're more than happy to do that. And for now, thanks very much.